Alright, the new monitor is making it a bit hard for my camera to focus on my head, so it's kind of hanging. So if it falls down, don't blame me. Or, blame me, but, not really my fault. Alright, time to do UFC 93, aptly named Franklin versus Henderson. More of a boxing title instead of the pro wrestling titles. Like it. We start off the night with Martin Kampmann's welterweight debut against Alexander Barros. Alexander Barros has got a good ground game. He is a pretty good wrestler, but Martin Kampmann is surprisingly hard to take down. He's a bit of a smaller version of Crow Cop of old, although he actually has a pretty good ground game in his own right. I'm taking Kampmann via second round TKO. Barros can take a fair amount of abuse, so I could see this going to decision, but I just think that he'll get frustrated with Kampmann, and Kampmann will eventually finish him. Eric Ravishing Red Shaver and Antonio Mendez. This is a fight that could go two ways. If Mendez can keep it standing, Eric Shaver's stand-up is god-awful. That's the honest truth. Despite training with Rick Rufus, he still doesn't have stand-up. But he has a better ground game than Mendez, and I think he will take him down and submit him in the second round. But like I said, if Mendez can keep this standing, he should have a fairly easy fight. Rosamar, Paul Harris, Jeremy Horn, and a bit of a passing of the guard. Rosamar should take this easily. Jeremy Horn is not the fighter he once was. His extensive career, according to MMA Playground, 103 fights. I've heard more from other sources, but that's the MMA Playground opinion. Is just on a downturn. He's only 33 years old, but he's fought too much. He needs to just coach, and that's really all there is to it. He's a great coach still. He's been getting submitted by people recently, like George Santiago, Nate Marquardt. Paul Harris is better than both of those submissions. Paul Harris is a beastly wrestler. I think he can easily take it down to the ground and submit Horn. I'll give Horn a little bit of credit and say he lasts to the second round. This is also because I think Paul Harris is sometimes lazy on top, and it might take him a while to go for the kill. Nate Moore, Dennis Seaver, both of these guys love to stand, but I think the difference is Seaver has a better ground game and a better wrestling game. I think Seaver, if he's smart, he takes him down and takes a UD, or he finishes him with a submission, but I'm going to go with the UD. I think he can possibly outstrike Nate Moore, but Seaver's chin is showing to be not as good as one would hope. Melvin Gillard basically wrecked it. So I hope he fights smart and gets a win, because I would like to see him stay in the UFC. He won't if he loses this fight. I don't think Nate Moore will if he finishes this fight, or doesn't win this fight either. The thing is, I think Nate Moore never really earned his way into the UFC. Tom Egan, John Hathaway, the Irish-British matchup, as usual. I haven't seen a lot of Tom Egan. I have seen some of John Hathaway. I'm going to go with John Hathaway via unanimous decision. Me picking decision, though, is honestly more of a, I really haven't seen enough of Tom Egan to really tell if Hathaway can submit him or stop him with strikes, so I don't know how much credence you should put in this pick. Marcus Davis, Chris Lytle. I'm taking Marcus Davis by UD because I think Davis has the ability to dictate where the fight is. I think he can take Lytle down if he has to and defend subs from the bottom. And I think he can strike with Lytle if he wishes to. I think he's a slightly better striker than Chris Lytle. I mean, both are excellent former pro boxers, but I just give Davis that tiny little bit advantage in power and striking ability. If you look at their respective fights with Paul Taylor, though, you do get a somewhat of a different story. I mean, Lytle outstruck Taylor, whereas Taylor really took it to Davis, but I think he caught Davis a little off guard, took him down and tapped him. But yeah, I'm going to go with Davis. Better wrestler, slightly better striker in my opinion. Next we have Thomas Drawal and Ivan Seretti. Taking Drawal via first round TKO. Ivan Seretti is not that good of a fighter. I mean, he's an okay fighter, but he's been TKO'd twice in his career. Drawal has power punches and good wrestling and a reasonable striking. He struck with Thiago Silva for quite some time before gassing. That is the concern, is that his gas tank is questionable, and if Seretti can make this fight go longer, I think Seretti can take it, but I think Drawal will finish him in the first round. Dennis King, Alan Belcher. this entirely depends on which Dennis Kang comes out to play. If the old Dennis Kang comes out to play, I think he taps Belcher out late in the fight, 3rd round. But if he comes out like he did against Gegard Mousasi and against Yoshihiro Akiyama, I believe it was, he is going to get beat by Belcher. And I really hope the old Dennis Kang comes out, because, you know Dana White really would like someone to prove that he was right in saying Dennis Kang wasn't UFC material. And he's hoping Alan Belcher does that, I'm pretty sure. But I'm going to take Kang through 3rd round submission, probably an armbar. Mauricio Shogun Hua versus Mark the Hammer Coleman. Shogun all the way. Shogun's a better striker, better grappler. Shogun's main problem is that his cardio has not been the same since he was injured at the hands of Coleman. That being said, Coleman's cardio is not very good either. This pretty much eliminates the fact that I don't think Coleman can take this very far. And also, Coleman's been talking about how he wants to bang with Mauricio Shogun Hua, which I don't know if that's a diversionary tactic, but Coleman's hands aren't that good. It could just be that I think Coleman may not have the ability to shoot for a takedown with nearly the explosive level he used to. His knees are not so good. His back is not so good. But yeah, Shogun should win this one, probably by tap out. I think this fight does go to the ground at some point. Coleman, it does have a reasonably good chin. I mean, he took a pretty lopsided beating at the hands of Krokop for quite some time. I'm wondering how Coleman's going to take the cut to 205, though. I've never thought of Coleman as a guy who could probably make this cut terribly comfortably. It wasn't that small of a heavyweight. Kevin Randleman, on the other hand, obviously can, but not so much Mark. But we'll see. That'll be interesting. But really, this is a poor second headlining fight. There's a number of better action-wise fights, but this one has the name recognition. And the main event of the evening: Rich Franklin versus Dan Hollywood Henderson. Dangerous Dan Hollywood Henderson. Man with way too many nicknames. Hendo. Both of these guys are still probably top 5 in the middleweight division, despite their respective losses to Anderson Silva. They are fighting at 205 for this fight. I don't really understand that, because they're going to be fighting Michael Bisping next at, I assume, 185. I think both would beat Michael Bisping, in all honesty. I think a lot of Bisping's only really good win at middleweight is, and it's not even a really good win, it's Chris Lieben. And like it or not, if Chris Lieben can't hit you, he's not going to beat you. He's been beaten by people like Caleb Starnes, Jason McDonald. Enough said. So I'll break that fight down, though, in more detail when it comes around. That being said, Rich Franklin probably is the more technical striker, better footwork, more kicks on the feet. He's a bit younger. Actually, I think he's quite a bit younger. He's it's only about 4 years, but still, he's younger, more in his prime. I kind of want to see Rich win this fight, just because I think Henderson's he's starting to get a little bit older, and I think Franklin maybe still has a bit of an upside to him. In terms of wrestling, you got to give it to Dan Henderson in the clinch, and overall, I mean, Dan Henderson is the best wrestler at middleweight, I think, in the UFC. No one really comes to mind. Though apparently they are looking at signing Jake Rochold, who at this point might be better than Dan Henderson. Power-wise on the feet, you got to give it to Henderson. His tremendous KO power in really both hands. They're both grapplers who I don't think to the point where either can submit the other. I got to give this to Henderson. The ability to dictate where a fight happens is incredibly key in MMA and in the UFC particularly, because they will award top positions so much. And Henderson can do that. I think Henderson can strike a little bit with Franklin. I think he's going to discover. I don't really want to strike with Franklin. He's going to take Franklin down. Franklin's takedown defense is pretty good, but I don't think it's up to keeping Henderson on the feet. And Henderson wins by a UD because I don't think he finishes Franklin. All in all, this is a pretty good card. I mean, outside of the fact that Coleman versus Shogun is a tremendous letdown as a co-main, not a co-main event, but a vice main event, if you will. But still, it's a good card. It will be enjoyable, I think. I hope. There's a lot of fights on here that are really going to be good. I think Dennis Seaver, Nate Moore is going to be a great fight. Thomas Drawl and Ivan Soretti will last. Will be a good fight. Antonio Mendes, Eric Schaefer is an interesting fight. But that's all I have to say on the card. So, later.